So what's up people, and hope everybody is doing well? Yeah, today's video is kind of a bit different. In my last Alita Battle Angel video, I was mentioning how I was delayed in uploading recent videos because I was futzing around with my PC after a recent update. And I just wanted to give the details here, just explaining a few things. But in any case, I am not a computer expert, so don't take any of what I'm saying as any reason for how to build a computer. I just want to bring that out. I just wanted to bring out just some of the things I've recently done. And so, I don't particularly update computers all that much, and the only reason I decided to do so now was because my wife wanted to update her computer, and her computer is actually older than mine, and so I could understand why she would like to do that. And one of the reasons she wanted to do that was that she wanted to go into learning more about 3D rendering, which of course takes a little bit of CPU and GPU capabilities. And so I was looking into what was available, and during that time I realized that maybe it's a good time for me to upgrade my computer as well. And the reason for that is, my PC was getting a little bit old in the tooth. I was still running i5 3570K Ivy Bridge. That's about 7 years old, with a Z77 motherboard and 16 gigs of DDR4 1600. And so it was getting a little bit dated. My GPU was a little bit more recent, running a GTX 1060. But I figured maybe it was a good time to do so because it was during the Black Friday time that I was looking into this. And considering there is a local micro center near me, I decided to do so. So anyway, I was looking into this, and I mentioned in my Alita Battle Angel video that I did update, but somewhere along the way my power supply, which was even older, at being around 10 years old, running previous Core 2 Duo and Core 2 Quad systems. That's when I got the PSU. I needed to change that. And I realized also that maybe it was about time I changed my case. The case was the oldest thing in my collection, and I had some sentimental ties to it. But it was the case that I got when I first started building computers back in 2005. Yeah, you remember the Athlon 64 days? Yeah, that was my first build. And the case that came along, or the one that I chose during that time, was a Roswell TU-155. I bet nobody remembers that one. And to bring out what it looked like, this is the Roswell TU-155. And so this was actually a pretty darn good case. I got it mostly because of the fact that I had no idea anything about building computers, and this was a cheap case. And it seemed to have 5 eggs on Newegg, which now I know doesn't really mean much of anything. But I decided that I would get this case. And so this is the case I've been running on for the past 15 years. And although it's done well, I've never really thought about changing the case because of the fact that, how often does a case go bad? I mean, get dented or anything like that to the point of not being able to be used. And so I kept on using this case, kind of modifying it a little bit, and I had some sentimental ties to it. So I never changed the case. But I figured now I needed to because of the fact that, considering it was 15 years old, the connections on the case were pretty outdated, especially in the USB area. And so I thought I would update the case. And I had another case which was a little bit newer lying around, and I switched it to that, but it wasn't any better in terms of connection. It was definitely better in terms of some of the design, although that was arguably so. And so I realized that changing the case to a slightly newer one that was kicking around was not an answer. And also, in all these cases, I was looking at the budget and trying to find a good cheap case. And whenever you do so, as good as the case is, you do take compromises. And so I thought I would look for a little bit higher price case that will maybe not be the most expensive case out there, but at least be something that was something that I wouldn't have to take too many compromises and work-throughs to build a computer. Because to be honest, I'm getting tired really of modding and doing those sorts of stuff. And so I figured I would like to have an easy build. And so, I started looking into the case. Now, as far as the main components, I always go for a budget type of value build. So I wasn't going for anything super fancy. And so Ripjaws again, DDR4 this time, 3600, B450 Tomahawk, the Ryzen 2700x, and to cool, although I already had a Noctua U12S, I bought another one because I wanted to transfer mine to my wife's because it was the one I had was more color appropriate for my plan for her system, and this was more appropriate for mine. Now, as far as why I chose the 2700X, well, I could talk about core count versus performance per core. The 3600X is faster per core because of the higher IPC and the higher clock. And the 2700X has a higher core count, but that wasn't really the reason. It would be more sophisticated if it was. But basically, I chose the 2700X because it was on sale for $130 at Market Center. And the 3600X was a near $200. So it was a no-brainer for me. And as far as the 2600X, that was only about $10-15 cheaper. And so for me, I found this processor to be good for a budget build. Again, I don't go for anything super fast, but the 2700X is a pretty decent processor, in my opinion. Now, of course, to go with that, instead of going with the newest motherboards, I just went with the B450. And I chose the Tomahawk because although some of the other motherboards have more features, this one was reputed for having good voltage regulation. And so, although I don't overclock, it's always good if you decide to keep the motherboard and the processor for an extended period of time that you do want decent voltage regulation on your motherboard. So, I chose performance over feature or stability over features. And as far as the DDR4 3600. That was a little bit of a mistake. I should have gotten the 3200, which was $10 cheaper. I thought it was just a slightly bit higher in price, and so I got the 3600. What I didn't realize was the BIOS, for the Tomahawk only went up to about DDR4 3400. So I'm running this at its profile of 3333. And so, it's a lesson learned. But since it was only $10 more, maybe it was okay. In any case, that's basically the setup. And overall, since the motherboard becomes $30 cheaper as well if you buy the CPU and the motherboard together, the RAM, the motherboard, and the CPU together came out to about $300. So it was a pretty good upgrade deal, in my opinion, especially considering this was my first upgrade in 7 years for the processor. So now as far as my original case, this is it. I took all the parts out since I've already done the upgrade. But you can see, it's pretty dated. As you can see, I've done modifications. I put case handles on it. I put a top air vent so that at least it will have some sort of airflow more than its original design. But yeah, I mean, this was a fun mod. I always enjoyed modifying cases. And I've drilled out all the rivets on this case and changed it to machine screws so that I could take it apart whenever I wanted to. And you could see the inside. I've painted it and put some wire pass-through holes, which back in the 15 years ago, there was no wire pass-through holes. There was no such thing as wire management. And I noticed in one of the hardware forums that somebody started doing that, and I thought that was a great idea, so I started doing that as well. I have this 92mm fan at the back. And you can see the Z77 motherboard and the old Ivy Bridge stuff. Yeah, it lasted well, and it still works, so I'm going to maybe continue on working with this. And I have two 80mm fans in the front. So, yeah, I mean, back in the old days, 15 years ago, that was the standard size. 92mm was actually fairly big. So, yeah, there was limitation in airflow, but it ran cool. Now the back here, I kind of kept the wire management as best as possible. You can see all these pass-through holes which I cut into the back of the case so that I could pass through all the things because of the fact that back then there was no such thing as wire management, right? So it worked. And it ran cool, but I did have to keep the front side panel or the side panel on the left side of the case open so that you will get decent airflow. And I did run a decent cooler, and so there was never any temperature issues. However, maybe it was time that I stopped running my computer with the sides off. Yeah, you could see this is so old, the power supply was still at the top of the computer. And you can see also I cut out the back of the case and put this this thing here so that you will have better airflow and the grating wouldn't prevent the air from coming in. And I also removed a lot of these PCI slots so that it improved the airflow. So overall, again, it ran good. But it was time I stopped. Yeah, you could see the machine screws up here, right? Yeah. Yeah, so I had sentimental ties to it, but there are limitations to just how far it went. So, yeah, time to change. So this was the case that I had kicking around and originally thought that I would just upgrade everything into here. It has better airflow. It's a more expensive case. And it's a decent case. However, there was still limitations in airflow compared to the recent cases because you have so many 5.25 inch drive bays here. And the biggest problem was here you're still stuck with USB 2.0 for your front connections. And so as good as this case was, there was still the existing limitations. And so even with this case, I would have to make compromises, and I did when I was building some stuff in. The wire pass-through holes exist because it's newer, but it's not really well positioned, and I found that my older case actually had better positioning wire pass-through holes. So overall, I just got tired and wanted a case that will last a long time and give me good airflow, good wire management, good ease of building, and decent sound. So the case I decided to get was a Fractal Design Define R6. Now this is a case that's not really new. I mean, it's rarely new. It came out in the very end of 2017. But it was really well reviewed by a lot of people and looks absolutely gorgeous. And it's built really well. It has this beautiful brushed aluminum front. And as you can see, the connections here, finally you have USB 2.3 3.0 and also the newest Type-C 3.1. And the nice thing about this is actually a modular switch panel. So if there is ever newer switches, so long as Fractal Design is willing to, they could actually provide newer switch panels. It probably will cost a a bit, but it will be a lot better than buying a whole case. Now, since this was decently reviewed by a lot of people, I'll leave a link to a few of the reviewers so that you don't have to listen here for the basic case. But this is really well built. This has a 140 millimeter back fan, and the inside is a little bit wider so that it could accommodate decent sized coolers and stuff. Yeah, I like this design as well. It has a power supply shroud and really decent wire pass-through positions, as well as grommets on the wire pass-through holes. You could see also that the back, it looks black. That's because there's a sound deadening material on the panel so that it will reduce the amount of sound that comes out. There's also a hole in the back, as you see in the power supply shroud area. And that's really important because a lot of these miss that, and you have a really hard time connecting the audio connections because they don't have the power supply. The wire pass-through holes. But this one makes it easy. And so overall, functionality-wise, it's really nice. It's a little bit wider, again, so it accommodates a lot of the coolers and stuff. And you have this button at the top. And the reason the button is at the top is, as you can see, it has a metallic top. But there's this panel that you could remove. And if I push the button, it will actually take the panel off. And you could put fans here, which of course you would think is, why would you put fans here if there's a solid panel on top of it? But the nice thing is that you could actually take this grating off and just put the grating on the top, and then you'll have a vented top rather than solid one. And so if you wanted to, for example, you could put your water cooling radiator at the top, and yeah, it has a lot of functionality. Now in the back, as you can see, there's a ton of hard drive trays, and you see this fan control hub, and there's a lot of places where you could do wire tie downs, and you see this 2.5 drive panels here and the 3.5 drive panels here as well. And you see two 140 millimeter fans in the front, so you got good airflow. You have good containment of your power supply. You have a ton of areas of modular drive bays. And you can see there's gratings at the bottom as well, so you could put fans down there as well if you wanted to. So for water cooling, it has multiple placements of the radiator. Now, I don't water cool at all, and never was particularly ever interested in doing that. So that's why I like air cooling over AIOs. But if I ever wanted to, I guess I have the option to do so. That side panel that you see that's covering this drive bay area can actually be moved to the back so that it opens this entire area up for water cooling. And one thing I like about this is they give you all the accessories in this box that fits right into one of the drive bays. And so yeah, see, it pulls out. And since I always lose these things all the time, all my accessories, it's nice to be able to put it into one of these drive bays. Now this case holds up to 11 3.5 inch drives. I'm never going to use 11 3.5 inch drives, which of course means that I could always have one space access for the accessory box. Yeah. So yeah, 140 millimeter fans is nice because you can run them relatively silent and get a decent amount of airflow. So overall, it's really designed well. It's not the best cooling solution case out there, but it's one of the better ones. It's not the quietest case out there, but it's one of the better ones. It's not the most versatile case out there, but it's one of the better ones. And when you put it all together, I found that this case was really good. And as you can see here, the front panel opens up. And you see one 5.25 inch drive bay. To be honest, as much as all these other things, I could pretend to be sophisticated and say that was the reason I chose this case. But the reason I chose this case is because it actually is one of the few cases that's left in the mid-tower that has a 5.2-inch drive bay. There are others, but most of them are questionable in terms of build quality, including some of the other cheaper Fractal design cases. And I wanted something that was really solidly built. And although there are other really good mid-tower cases out there by other manufacturers, this was the only one that I could find that had a 5.2-inch drive bay. And so, yeah, it's kind of old-fashioned, but I guess I'm old school. So it was important to me, and that's basically why I chose this case. It's one of the few cases I had options to. Okay, so this is what it looks like at the very end with all the things in. And as you can see, you can see why I chose the U12S Chromax Noctua cooler. Because it fits this color scheme much better. I'll transfer the original one to my wife's because that'll fit her color scheme better, which will be the same case, but it'll be in a white color. But in any case, yeah, this was a really joy to build. It was so comfortable to build in this case. It's almost overkill. I mean, the case is basically made for water cooling, and so if you're just going to do air cooling, there's a lot of room, maybe too much so, and you could build to a smaller case. But what I find is that it's really flexible, and because of that, I don't mind it being so big because I have first of all, it's just so comfortable to build in, and second of all, I know that if I ever do get, for example, a larger video card, or if I ever do dabble into water cooling, that I could do so with this case. And so that gives me a peace of mind that it will work for quite a bit of time. Now, as you can see, I put the door latch in the other side. Yes, it actually can be opened from both sides. So since I will have the tempered glass on the side here, I changed the door over here because it's more appropriate for my desk arrangement. And I put my DVD up there so that I could watch Alita Battle Angel, but right now it's not connected because I need to get the right length SATA cables and maybe some SATA extension power cables. Yeah, but overall, yeah, it looks really good. And again, for this case, this has wonderful wire management capabilities. I mean, I'm not particularly taking great efforts here, and it could be a lot better, but that's more me than the case. And eventually I may want to get some braided cables for everything, but overall it's looking pretty darn good, I think. And no, none of this is RGB. Yeah, right now we're all into this RGB craze, but maybe I'm old school. I don't particularly care for that. I did put on Fantech what do you call it, lights, RGB lights at the back, but I'm not gonna do a rainbow barf sort of situation. I'm just gonna keep it one single color and run it that way. But overall, it was a relatively easy build. The 1060s looking pretty good, the Elgato's looking pretty good, and yeah, no more Molex cables. Yeah. And the Fantech is looking pretty good there, and it's gunmetal gray. Okay, so the back was a joy. And the biggest joy I found was that there's so much, maybe not so much, but there's quite a bit of space to run all these cables through, which was one of the most difficult things with the previous case. And so this made a lot of the fan wire arrangement pretty good. It's not great, you could see, well, a lot of the back end is never all that pretty, but yeah, it came out okay. I think I could improve it better. Some of this was a problem with one complaint with the case, which I'll talk about later, but overall it came out looking pretty good. You could see the SSD drive, which is where I put all my programs and Windows, and then you could see the mechanical hard drive. It's a 4 terabyte that I have over here, and you can see my little container of accessories. Now I have 2 drives here because I also had a 2 terabyte, and although I don't particularly use it, I always have it accessible And if I ever want to take anything out from that, all I have to do is move the cables around. There's the DVD. I don't have any clips. And you could see, yeah, one ugly fan connector. Because something weird. This lower fan, fractal design fan actually doesn't reach the hub. And so I had to put a extension, which I had lying around. But as the enthusiasts would say, it has an ugly ketchup and mustard color. Now, one of the other things is the controller cables also didn't reach the motherboard. And so it's kind of ugly looking here, and I couldn't put it down the way the other cables are. I can't figure out why they would do that. They should know that the lengths should be longer to reach. But those are minor gripes. And overall, I think everything turned out pretty well. And so in the end, yeah, this was a journey that took longer than I expected. I thought I would only upgrade the motherboard, the RAM, and the CPU, but I ended up changing the case and the power supply. Oh yeah, the power supply. Yeah, I decided to get a Corsair RM750X. Yeah, I mean, you don't go by the brand, but go by the model, and so far it seemed to be pretty good. I can't go by Johnny Guru since he works at Corsair now, but I could go by somebody like Oklahoma Wolf and others, and it reviewed pretty well, so I decided to get this one. Yeah, I know 750 watts is way overkill for this computer, but it gives me space for headroom for the future, and I'm hoping that it'll last another 10 years again. And it was actually on sale, so it was only like $2 difference from the 650 watts, so I might as well get this. I typically like 650 watts, but I chose this one just because it was basically the same price. So yeah, everything is running pretty well now. I mem tested the memory, and it seems to be stable. Cinebench is giving, for anybody interested, about 3920, which is about average for anybody who's using a 2700X and 1060. It's not great, it's not bad, and I can understand that because I'm not overclocking anything, but I am using turbo, and so it's probably in the middle of the pack there, so that's fine with me. And overall, it's working really good. It's feeling very fast. And so, although it was a little bit more than I expected, I feel that I have a new case, a case I could trust for the next quite a few years. My power supply will keep me comfortable. Oh, by the way, one thing about the Corsair power supply, their cables are outrageously stiff. So if you do decide to get that one, be aware of that. And I probably will get braided cables eventually just to get away from these stiff cables. Anyway, coming back, yeah, that's it. Next year, I probably will upgrade the GPU to something like a 5700 XT. Maybe get a M.2 drive. And they're coming down in price so much that I'm keeping an eye out on the 1 terabyte ones. Anyway, I'll keep on, I won't keep on working on this. It won't be for a while before I do another upgrade. If I do, probably a year from now, I'll make another video, but this is it. And this is what I'll be using to make my videos on. And so, yeah, thank you very much for watching. I apologize for the length. And I apologize for my really crappy camera skills. That's one of the reasons why I don't do any camera type of stuff. Once again, I'm not a computer guru. For all I know, this is all crappy stuff. But I enjoy it, and for me, that's all that matters. So thank you very much. If you have your computer build, and if you build computers, I would like to see what you have for your rig. Most people have much better rigs than I do, and so it will be interesting to see what you guys have. But in any case, I'll continue on with more of my usual videos, and I hope you join me at the time. And until then, happy PC building, happy computer testing, video watching, and as always, Jaya, nice day everyone.